All right, let's talk about what Robert Bly called giant words and also big claims. Giant words are every, always, all, never. You can think about them as absolutes, and as soon as you use one, there is a really good chance that you have just downgraded your argument. And you know this because whenever you're in a fight and you say, "You never do this," well, your lazy bum of a partner is going to remember 4 years ago the one time they took out the garbage. And they'll go, "What do you mean never? I did it that one time and it was even snowing." So you've got into those fights, you've been over there, and you say you never. And as soon as you do that, right, you've either lost or the argument gets totally sidetracked into what's really the point, right? Which would be more honest to say, you typically, but who's going to do this in an argument? You typically don't take out the garbage, and I would really like it if you would, but you never. So, in your papers, when you're using never and always, ask yourself, is that the case? Because typically it is not very hard for you to find a case where it's not. You know, the one example I use a lot in class is, "You should never lie." Okay, well, number one, research has shown that we lie every single day, right? Whether it's just somebody asks us how we're feeling and we say we're fine when we're not because socially it's awkward to say, "I feel really bad because my dog died 2 months ago and I still haven't gotten over it." When you say never lie, the person's going to be going, "Well, okay, now we're going to have to make all these qualifiers." But number two, whenever you say never, right? How hard is it to come up with the scenario? And this is the thing about absolutes. You say never lie, right? I say we're in a room and a man comes in with a rifle, 3 knives strapped to his chest, a pistol, and a crazed look in his eye, and says, "Is Steve Anderson here?" The right thing to do is lie and say, "No, he's not. We think he left campus. You should go out someplace else." Right? And the one person who says, "You look crazy. You'll probably kill him, but my parents said, never lie." There he is. Not the right call. So beware nevers. The other thing that goes along with never words are these big claims. And the tricky part is we make big claims all the time because things move fast and I don't want to get into all of the details. So I'm talking to my 10-year-old, and do I want to explain everything that I say to him and the reasoning behind it? No, I don't. We've got things to do. We've got to get to the bus, you name it. And so sometimes I'll just be like, "Nope, for today, just do it. Trust me. I'll talk to you later about it." Or and then so when it comes to your academic papers, though, this is meant to be slower, right? This is why it doesn't help to wait till Sunday night to write your paper. So you've got more time to think about what you're saying. And it's like one of those never words. And here's an example that comes up, and I'll show you. And I find it incredibly frustrating because typically in these arguments where people are using these giant statements that don't stand up, underneath them, there is some truth, right? And there's something to get at. But if you start with something that people can find out within 5 minutes on the internet is not accurate, you've lost some of your credibility, right? Your position, those people who agree with you have lost some of their credibility. And it can be a very easy thing to fix. So I will give you an example. This is a step in place. This is actually the contract that I'm under. So you have probably heard something about how women make 78 cents, 70 cents on the dollar to men. This is one of those giant, bold statements, right? That is going to have some truth to it, but it's also not going to stand up. So what's interesting is I hear this sometimes, right? And you can see here's Bernie Sanders saying it, and it goes into, even though that this is inaccurate, etc., you can see that the Democrats like to use it, and sometimes they'll use it, and then people are talking about how it's not accurate, and then they'll come back and use it again. All right. So if you say women make 78 cents of the dollar to men, and you're making that statement as if it's in every single job, somebody like me is going to go to, well, here's my contract. And it's a step in column. So your pay is based on, number one, the number of years of experience you have in your field. So if I've been teaching for 5 years, I go here. If I've been teaching for 8 years, I go here. If I'm a woman and I've been teaching for 5 years, I go here. If I'm a man and so there's no initial step. It's how much experience you have. Now it's a step in column. Right? And when you go to column placement, it's all about your education. So if you have college degree, it's here. If you have a master's degree, it's here. If you have a master's degree plus something else or PhD, it's there. So at least when you're at my college, every professor is paid on their right experience and credentials, and it doesn't matter, right, what their gender is. So when you tell me, hey, Steve, how's it feel getting paid more for the same work? I'm like, well, no, I don't. I don't. And so that's wrong. Now, is there sexism in the workplace? Yes. And so why in the world use a statement like this that somebody who may want to be on your side but has questions can find out isn't fully accurate within literally minutes? Instead, and who doesn't like bashing on Walmart, right? If you look at Walmart, multiple times they get sued because it appears that a woman gets hired at Walmart, right? And then basically trains the man who then comes in, she trains and becomes her manager. And the manager keeps moving up, and then she trains in the next man who's going to come up. That sucks. That's gender discrimination. That's sexism, if it's true. I think it is, but I don't know. So allegedly. You pull out a specific case, you narrow things down and say, hey, look at this. Now it's like, okay, now this is convincing. This is something that we can get into a discussion of, right? And that's what I'm talking about when whatever claims you're making, right? Just as you don't want to use giant words, always, never, right? You want to make sure your claim isn't so big that there's going to be some big holes in it once people looking. Now, you might want to start big. That could make sense. So I'm going to look into why is the pay gap what it is. And then you start finding out, well, in some cases it's sexism. In other cases it's because, men and women typically pick different jobs, are willing to work different amounts of hours. And now we get into something really interesting, right? And when in doubt, go just Google Walmart, because you'll find out that they're doing something, right, that is surprisingly good. Like, oh, look, there's promoting local farmers now that they've opened up grocery stores. Didn't know that. That's a positive. Oh, look, they're drying up all the small businesses, and then you may know the story. And if you don't and you're interested, do some research. It is fun and discouraging all at the same time. So, as you go through your paper, look for the giant words, look for the giant claims, and see, does this one stand up to a test? And a lot of times, instead of saying never, you say most of the time, and you're covered, right? Or instead of saying all men and, make more money than women for the same job, you go and start looking into, where are concrete cases that you can pull out to show that exists. So, giant words, bad for arguments, bad for academic papers, though people do them all the time.